Jeffrey Epstein keeps coming up in the news, and every fucking time he does, I'm going to talk about it. I want the global pedophile sex trafficking ring to be exposed. I want to see all these people go to prison. I don't care if it's Prince Andrew. I don't care if it's Donald Trump. I don't care if it's Bill Clinton. Put them all in jail. Pack them up. Get them the fuck out of here. They deserve it. But every time Jeffrey Epstein comes up, he's linked to Donald Trump. I'm going to say he's ostensibly linked to Donald Trump, even though I don't know if that word fits there. I've just wanted to use that word. I've never been able to use it before in a sentence. Now, this reporting has recently come out that Donald Trump's name in the Epstein files has been redacted by the FBI. And I think that this is rich because Donald Trump was never in the Epstein files. But then he said that he was in the Epstein files, but it was a Democrat hoax. He was put in there by Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, and Joe Biden. He then said that, no, my name was actually planted in the Epstein files, but it's not a hoax, but I was still planted. And then he says that I was friends with Jeffrey Epstein, and then I ended that friendship because he did something really disgusting. He poached an employee from me. He couldn't remember the name of that employee at first, but then remembered that it was, in fact, Virginia Giuffre, one of the more prominent Jeffrey Epstein accusers, who was tied more specifically to Prince Andrew. Why am I saying all of this? Like, why the preamble? Why the preamble? I want everyone to stay constantly aware of the stream of events here and of the disgusting government cover-up that is happening, because conservative media will not talk about it. Charlie Kirk specifically said that he will not talk about Epstein anymore until the case is done because he's a loser. I, on the other hand, actually give a shit about protecting children like these so-called conservative dipshits say they do. They don't give a fuck about any of that. As soon as Donald Trump was mentioned, they were like, I'm a free thinker, but I'm actually not going to talk about this because Donald Trump is implicated. The FBI redacted Donald Trump's name along with the names of other prominent public figures from references in the Epstein files. 3 people familiar with the matter told Bloomberg's Jason Leopold. You had Kash Patel going on Joe Rogan and spreading all this bullshit about, oh, Jeffrey Epstein did die of suicide. We're going to release the tape. The tape comes out. There's a minute missing. Pam Bondi says it's normal because it's an old system and that they're going to release additional video footage to show that this cut happens every night at 11:59 p.m. None of that has come out. The only video that has come out since does not show any evidence of Jeffrey Epstein. It does not have a view of his cell. This whole situation is just fucking disgusting. The fact that the government is covering up a pedophile sex trafficking ring because Donald Trump is involved is fucking shameful. We need a Nuremberg-style trials for this, where not only are the perpetrators brought to justice, but all of the people who aided, abetted, and propagandized this cover-up as well. Internal directives instructed about 1,000 FBI agents to flag any mention of Trump during a March review of roughly 100,000 pages of records. People familiar with the process told Bloomberg. The Justice Department said the review turned up no client list or evidence linking Trump to criminal activity, despite his name appearing in Epstein's contact book and flight logs. Remember, Pam Bondi had the client list on her desk right now, and guess what? It disappeared. It grew legs and it fucking walked away. It walked back to Mar-a-Lago. The president and senior White House officials have repeatedly said in recent weeks that there is no reason to release the remaining Epstein files, and they have sought to move on from the saga despite calls from Trump's base to release all documents as promised. This is only some of Trump's base. There's some MAGA who is like, yeah, release the files. We shouldn't be protecting pedophiles. And then the other half of MAGA is like, actually, no, we want to protect pedophiles, but only because that pedophile is Donald Trump. The Bloomberg report said earlier this year, FBI agents were directed to search for all documents associated with the Epstein case and determine which could be released, totaling tens of thousands of pages, following Attorney General Pam Bondi's request for them. During the review in March, FBI personnel were said to have identified numerous references to Trump and other high-profile people, with the names then redacted by FOIA officers because they were private citizens at the time, a common practice under FOIA case law. This is a talking point that conservatives have hit repeatedly, in the sense that they don't want the Epstein files to be released for the sake of the victims, even though you can just anonymize the victims. Mike Johnson said this. He said that they don't want to traumatize these women again. And that, obviously, I'm much of the same. But again, I want the release of the Epstein files along with the anonymization of the victims. We don't want the victims to have to relive this trauma. But we do want the perpetrators to be brought to justice because that is what these victims deserve. I don't give a shit if they were private citizens at the time. If they were doing pedophilia, they do not deserve to have their names redacted. After the redactions, the files were sent to Bondi, who then reportedly told Trump in May that his name were in the files. Then, in early June, the Justice Department and FBI released a joint statement saying they had concluded that no further documents needed to be disclosed. Quote, "While we have labored to provide the public with maximum information regarding Epstein," the statement read, quote, "it is the determination of the DOJ and the Federal Bureau of Investigation that no further disclosure would be appropriate or warranted." Meanwhile, there's been zero transparency. Maximum information. They've given us dick, dude. Nothing that's come out is new. Every piece of information that the FBI releases is recycled. Privacy concerns and protection for victims have been cited as reasons for withholding additional material, a decision that has drawn bipartisan criticism and renewed scrutiny of the files handling. Redact the victims. You know who the victims are. Have 1,000 FBI agents redact their names and not the name of President Donald Trump. Trump has said he believes his name was added to the files by former President Barack Obama and others within his administration. Trump and Epstein, both New Yorkers, first knew each other in the late 80s. There were several documented instances of the pair socializing and partying in the years that followed, including at Mar-a-Lago and in New York City. Additionally, you have pictures of them together. You have videos of them hanging out together. You have Donald Trump writing Jeffrey Epstein a birthday card for his 50th birthday. You do also have more reporting of a bunch of other celebrities who hung out with these two guys saying that they were engaging in underage sex parties. The list of evidence is lengthy. It's lengthy. And yet the media just refuses to discuss this. The mainstream media refuses to discuss Donald Trump's legitimate association with Jeffrey Epstein. Not just Jeffrey Epstein, the financier, but Jeffrey Epstein, the sex criminal. They spent about 15 years as friends, per Trump's own recounting. He told New York Magazine in 2002 that Epstein was a quote-unquote terrific guy. The president has said that he fell out of Epstein and had not talked to him in more than a decade before his arrest in 2019. Epstein, a convicted sex offender, died by suicide, allegedly, behind bars that year while awaiting trial on sex trafficking charges. What happened on Epstein's Island? Epstein owned a private island in the U.S. Virgin Islands where he held lavish parties but also allegedly carried out the sexual abuse of young girls. In 2020, prosecutors alleged a criminal enterprise took place on the island, with Epstein transporting underage girls and young women to the island to be used for sex by those in his inner circle, some as young as 11 years old. Epstein's estate settled a $105 million lawsuit in 2022 with the U.S. Virgin Islands. Did Trump visit Epstein's Island? Records have shown that Trump took at least 8 flights. I thought it was 7. Wow. On Epstein's private jet between 93 and 97, but they were between New York and Florida. The saga over the files related to Epstein case renewed questions over whether Donald Trump had ever gone further and visited the island Epstein owned. On Monday, Trump told reporters he never had the privilege of visiting the island. Additionally, Ghislaine Maxwell has just been moved to a much lower security prison in Texas. I believe this comes on the heels of her talking to Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche. This also comes on the heels of Donald Trump mulling a presidential pardon for Ghislaine Maxwell, which of course muddies the case even more because Ghislaine Maxwell is serving 20 years in prison for sex trafficking minors. She did also engage in abuse of these minors as well, but I don't believe that's one of her convictions. And yet the Trump administration is saying that Jeffrey Epstein never existed, right? He's a schizophrenic hallucination of the left. And if that is the case, who was Ghislaine Maxwell trafficking these minors to? She was Jeffrey Epstein's former girlfriend, very close friend as well, and main associate, who again was largely involved in procuring these young women. If Jeffrey Epstein never existed, why is Ghislaine Maxwell in prison? More importantly, there are additional questions surrounding this, like what's her testimony going to include if she actually has one, which I believe her deposition with Congress got canceled. Do not quote me on that. I haven't read anything up since I saw the initial tweet, so I'm quite skeptical of that. But folks are rightly believing that Ghislaine Maxwell is going to take the stand. She's going to say that Donald Trump was not there. She actually doesn't know who Donald Trump is. She's going to say that Donald Trump wasn't even the president. He doesn't even own Mar-a-Lago. He also is a schizophrenic hallucination of liberals. And then she's going to implicate virtually every Democrat. there's no reason for us not to believe that they're not going to say Donald Trump was involved. It's too obvious at this point. This is the Epstein saga is the most negligent government cover up that has ever existed. It is so blatantly obvious that Donald Trump was involved with Jeffrey Epstein, and yet they are going to incredible lengths to make sure that this news stays out of the news cycle. Mike Johnson tried adamantly to have Congress enter their recess without voting to release the Epstein files. And he succeeded. He succeeded. Now, their hope is that this dies down. All of the representatives return to their districts for August. This hubbub blows over, and the Jeffrey Epstein sex trafficking cabal just becomes a distant memory. I don't believe that that is going to be the case. Amongst the large majority of people living in the United States, this is a very serious issue because it should be. The Epstein saga highlights it. The Epstein saga perfectly encapsulates all of the conspiracies that have been perpetuated by right wingers for decades about this global cabal, about the deep state engaging in, the solicitation and the trafficking of minors. This is everything that Alex Jones talked about. This is everything that prominent conspiracy theorists talked about. And then when presented with the reality of it, they back down. They back down because their dear buddy, Donald Trump, is not only associated, but was probably actively involved at this point. The only people who are going to let this blow over are the diehard MAGA cultists. That, however, is not indicative of the rest of the country. There are far more people, forget even like myself. There are more non-MAGA Republicans and independents who wouldn't let this die. The overwhelming majority of the country, I would say probably 70 to 75% of the country wants this issue to be continued to be talked about. And rightfully so.